Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spiritually Speaking. Today, I have with me the amazing Tony. He's going to tell us all about some really incredible stuff today. We've been having an amazing pre-chat already. So, without further ado, Tony, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me as my guest. I'm so grateful to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm grateful for you having me on the show.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I love it. The amazing Tony. I sound like you make me sound like I'm a magician now.
Well, I mean,
I
you
do. I
are
am
amazing.
magical. I am a
Yes, you are
magical.
magical. You're all of those things.
Yes. We're all magical, but yeah, we
Yeah,
have our own unique perspective on magic and how we show up with that magic and allowing ourselves to show up with that magic. So,
yeah.
yes, I'm excited to be here. I love sharing stories. I love sharing my lessons and wisdom through my story and my unique perspective and the magic piece of it. So,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you again.
Absolutely. You're very welcome. And I'm very excited to see where our conversation takes us today because our pre-chat has been pretty powerful. So,
Yes, it started going pretty deep here, right? Right before you're like, wait a minute, we need to start recording this. So,
yeah,
uh, get on here because there, a lot of amazing awareness has just started flowing. As we were speaking, it's like, wow, speaking of like what we were just talking about, generational cycles of especially ones who are moving through a spiritual awakening, a journey. And I know this from working with many clients, is I've tended to see this pattern. They're the chosen ones that their ancestors chose that decided, hey, I'm gonna come here and we're gonna break this.
yeah,
We're gonna experience all this so that we can finally, we're the ones that came here to decide, hey, we're breaking these generational cycles. We're breaking these patterns for our ancestors to heal going back and heal going forward to create something new. So a lot of the experiences we experience it can be pretty heavy, pretty painful. And what we were just talking about is realizing that some of the hardest ones that it's hard for us to surrender to and
mm,
let go of are the ones because it's not just our stuff that we're letting go of. It's taking on and breaking those generational patterns and becoming aware of that and then surrendering into that, which is a huge awareness that I just had on something we were just talking about. So I
yeah,
was like, and when we're talking about feeling safe in our body, feeling safe to be ourselves, being accepted as ourselves. And it reminds me of this when I did some deeper past life generational work. One of the things that came, and it went back to Italy, where my dad's side of the family comes from Italy, and I forgot it might have been the 14th century. I don't remember exactly where it was, and I remember one of the things that came up that was passed on generationally was, who do you think you are to think you can
mm,
do better than the family?
yeah,
Even though that's what they wanted, but it was
right.
passed on. They're like, oh, we can't do that. We can't rock the boat. We can't stretch out and be who we are.
Yeah,
There's these rules and these patterns and these unspoken beliefs of how you're supposed to show up.
yeah. It's crazy. And it's actually, it was worded a little differently in my own reading for myself this morning, but what came forward for myself and my reading that I did for myself this morning was you are about to do something that no one else in your family has ever done, and it's already in process. It's been in process for years now, and it's just starting to, it's the tip of the iceberg, but it's going to be visible now, and that's the beautiful thing. And it's scary as hell, Tony. It is so scary to be the one that steps forward and allows yourself to be seen in this new and different light. And there is an element of who do you think you are to it. But we get to step fully into that and be like, well, like it or love it. My dad used to say, like it or lump it, actually. Like it or lump it. This is where we are. And this is this beautiful thing that we get to create, not just for ourselves, but the ripple effect of what you're creating, Tony, is going to help so many people across time. Like I'm getting goosebumps right now. It's amazing. And being able to allow yourself to fully embrace that and step into that. And knowing that regardless of the limiting beliefs we have in the beginning of these journeys, that our ancestors are proud of us. They love the fact that we have the intestinal fortitude, as my dad would put it, to put ourselves out there in this way and create something beautiful and amazing that no one else in the family had the kahunas to do before, or the belief in themselves to do. Because, that wasn't something that our parents really taught, or their parents really taught them. They were in survival mode. I mean, look at some of the things in the past that they had to go through. So they were in survival mode. And now we're learning not to be in survival mode. And we're learning that we can create these beautiful things and that it's okay that we get to do that. And it's a beautiful thing.
And knowing that, it's okay, but yet it's scary at the same time because it's unfamiliar. It's moving
Yeah.
into that unknown. And it's like going like the river of flow and going down. It's like letting go of this. Like it reminds me of this dream I had a while back in maybe 2020, 2021. Don't quite remember. And that's irrelevant. But I remember because Jesus is one of my guides and he's been one of my guides and it's really, really cool. But I was having this dream and I was floating on a raft and I had this huge rope that I was holding on to. And I remember looking back and saying, what am I holding on to? It was this huge like raft of this baggage, all this baggage. It was piled high. And I could feel it. And it's like all my stuff, all
Yeah.
my ancestors' stuff. And I remember as we're going forward, and then all of a sudden we were coming up to this waterfall. And there's Jesus there, and there's all my other guides were there, and ancestors were there. And I remember feeling this fear come up and getting scared because we're about to go over this waterfall. And Jesus looks at me and he goes, "You're going over that waterfall." And I go, "But I can't." He's like, "But you are. You have no choice. You are going there. And you can either make it easier by letting go of that baggage, that whole raft of baggage, or you're going to go down and you're going to experience some pain that you're choosing, but you're still going to let it go eventually."
Right.
And I remember going, "But I can't let it go." And of course, they're all laughing because, the whole laughing through life. They laugh at me. It's not funny. It's not funny. And I remember waking up and it's like, oh, going over the edge was going into the unknown, going into the uncertainty, but also going into the wholeness, the power, the true power of who we are and why we're here and the spiritual aspect of things and letting go of all the things and being grounded in self and be grounded in masculinity and the healthy masculinity. And that was another
Right.
thing that I struggled with because my story was anything but healthy masculine growing up, and the examples that I had was not that. And then, of course, I wanted that. I longed to have that healthy masculine, to be that man and that dad that I wanted to be. But anger was anchored and controlled me, and it felt out of control with anger. So then I caught myself trying to control aspects of my life to create certainty because there was so much uncertainty in my life, especially growing up. You had no idea which side of my dad you were going to get.
Mm.
And that's how he was raised. And I've had some amazing stories before he passed in 2020 where I didn't think we were going to have them. And I felt these callings to go, like the one thing, like when I wrote my first book, he didn't even know I wrote it because there was a lot of story of him and growing up and how things were, not in a way to attack him, but just matter of factly. He's like, "Hey, here's what happened from my perspective, and here's how things were." And I remember hearing this voice, and this was when I was back in the church at the time, before I went through my spiritual awakening and awoken to new deeper truths. But I kept hearing this voice saying, "Go set him free." Go set who free? I remember having this conversation.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you talking about? Go set who free?
Right.
And it's like, go set him free. Who? I'm asking you, who are you wanting me to set free? I have no idea what you're talking about. And then it got softer and like leaned in and said, "Go set your dad free." What does that mean? Go tell him thank you for the way he raised you. Oh, no, 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 I can't do that. Nope,
Right.
nope,
Yeah, you've got
nope.
to be crazy.
I'm like, there's no way. For one, my dad and I don't have that quite a that relationship, and to be that vulnerable, there's no way. I mean, we're not that way. I'm a vulnerable guy, but with him, nope, not happening. And it kept pushing on me and pushing on me and pushing me. And finally, where I had to go, fine. It's kind of like going over the waterfall.
Yeah.
We're going to push you until you go, okay, fine. So then I drove out, and it was at the time, he lived 30 minutes from me. I'm driving out. I'm nauseous. I'm sick to my stomach. My palms are sweaty. I'm just verbally anxious. And my daughter was, because that was 2014. And it was actually 3 days before my book was set to be published. He had no idea that I was publishing this book. So I go out there and I'm like, how am I going to have this conversation? I'm like lump in my throat. I mean, it was the most uncomfortable thing, especially, having this confrontation with my dad.
Right.
To me, it felt like a confrontation, even though it was supposed to be this, oh, set him free.
Right.
So uncomfortable. And I'm like, how am I going to do this? And we get there, and my daughter goes, Dad, I want to watch a movie. My dad, it's like, I'm going to go out in the garage and smoke. And I went, why not I just rip this Band-Aid off now and just, okay, set up the movie. I'm going out to talk to my dad. So I remember going out, talking to my dad. And I remember stepping, I just opened the door and I'm closing the door. And I said, Dad, I said this really fast too, because I was so nervous. And I said, Dad, I have something to tell you, and it's going to make us both uncomfortable. So I'm going to say it really fast so we can get it over with. And I went, and he had this confused, okay. And immediately I said, thank you, really fast. And he says, thank you for what? And I said, thank you for the way you raised me. And immediately he goes into defense mode. I showed you love when you were younger. And I realized at that moment, I went, oh my God, he has guilt and shame
Mm,
that he's holding on to. And I said, Dad, I'm not here to attack you. There's no, you don't need to get in defense mode. I'm not here to attack you because I was already on the journey of doing my own healing in a way. And that's how I was able to write the first book anyway, because I went on my own journey. And I'll share
yeah.
that here in just a little bit to go back to give the listeners a little taste of where I am and why I'm even here doing this. And I said, Dad, there's no reason to be in defense mode. I said, thank you for the way you raised me. Because of the way you raised me, I'm the man I am today. Because of the
Yeah.
was unexpected. Whew.
It's okay.
This is where I really
Yeah.
connect and align with the story of this. Because of the way you raised me, I'm the dad I am today. Because of the way you raised me, Dad, is the reason I do what I do.
Yeah.
Which he still wasn't clear because I could never share that because he just didn't get it.
Right.
And of course, back then, how I was sharing it was not even the same as where it is now because it's so evolved. And especially because I went into my spiritual awakening in 2019 is when I actually went. So it's not that far off. And I said, because of the way you raised me, I know now what not to do.
Yeah.
And I said, thank you. And then he just kind of went, because he couldn't, it was having that conversation. He could never really process that. Like he could never, even share that he was physically proud of us. He showed us in other ways, but he could never actually verbally say it because he never had that example. And I remember sitting there and I heard that voice again. And I was like, oh shit, here we go.
You're like, could you shut up?
And this was more uncomfortable than the first one saying, go set him free. Go tell him thank you.
Yeah.
This one was ask your dad if he was shown love as a kid. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? How? This was hard.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it
This
was.
was hard already. You want me to ask that? I'm like, okay, fine. I'll ask it because I know that if I resist it, it's just going to be very uncomfortable, more than I'm already feeling. So I'm going to go ahead and say it. And I'm saying this all in my head, not out loud, because my dad's still sitting next to me. And I was like,
Right.
but I'll ask him, but he's not going to answer that one. That's too vulnerable for him.
Right.
Well, I was shocked. So I said, Dad, were you shown love as a kid? Immediately, he said no. I was like, oh,
Mm,
I wasn't expecting that. And I said, was your dad, his dad, his dad? And my dad answered no to all of them. And then my dad says this, when boys got to a certain age, you stopped showing them love because that's what men did.
Right.
And I went, wow. I had no idea, when he said the age, because he didn't know the age. When boys got to a certain age, when I started doing some of this more deeper spiritual work, I realized it was age 7 for me. So it was probably most likely generationally passed on around the same time frame. Age
Right.
7 for me. And I went, wow. And I just realized my dad, because my dad was so angry and had all this shame and guilt, and that's what was eating in him.
Yeah.
And I re realized because right before that, because my mom, let me step back for a second. There's a lot trying to come through. So 2011, my wife passed away unexpectedly from a prescription drug overdose. I find her very traumatic. I'm
Heard of
left to raise my 5-year-old daughter at the time, which was very, very, it was a very scary moment and a time for me, especially I've already done a lot of work. I've done a lot of work, so I thought on anger, but yet here I am still angry. I went to therapy, all these different things. I was on medicine for depression at one point. Actually used anger to overcome depression,
Oh, that's interesting.
which we can use anger as a great tool.
Yeah.
Most of the time, most of the time though, it's controlling us versus us using it as the tool that it can be. And like even when I went through and I broke these cycles of anger, I avoided anger. I denied it, which is actually denying a part of myself. It's like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. Until one day I finally felt, I was like, wait, I'm angry right now. But I was scared of allowing anger in because I felt so out of control with it.
Right.
Like I went into this nice guy mode. First, I was the angry guy, would just speak my mind because that's how I was able to be seen and heard. And men often do this and they use anger as a way to express vulnerability without being vulnerable. It's a safe way. Anger is a way to express how you feel without being that vulnerable. That, we have this connotation and this belief that vulnerability is weakness, and it's actually the other way around. But anger is a way we can express ourselves vulnerably without being quote unquote vulnerable.
Right.
But we are being vulnerable. It's just through a very unhealthy way.
Right.
That's how we express it, and that's how I did it. And moving through all that and seeing that I was this way. And I remember sitting there after my wife died, just sitting there, just feeling, trying to make sense of all of what's happening. Because it was a crazy time. My daughter was 5 at the time. And sitting there going, how am I going to raise my daughter by myself? And it wasn't the actual fear of raising her by myself. That deeper was, how am I going to raise her by myself without projecting my anger onto her?
Yeah.
Trying to deal with grief, which also has the aspect of anger, which when you have all these different emotions coming through with that, it stirs up the deeper part of being angry, which anger is part of the grieving process too, but it was intense and being angry because I was out of control. And I ultimately did project it onto my daughter, which built that guilt, which is the same thing that happened to me. No
Sure.
matter what I tried to do, then I would beat myself up. And I had this inner battle, this raging war within. But anyway, just sharing that context there. So 2 years later, my mom passes away. Same month as my wife, just
Wow.
just 2 weeks earlier. And my dad goes downhill after she passes. Ends up having triple bypass. And this was in 2014 when he had this bypass. And I remember leaving, and this is right at the same time that I began my journey to start overcoming anger because I had almost given up because I tried what I thought at the time was everything that I can think of.
Yeah.
Now, I was doing personal development, I was going to events, I was going to counseling, I was going to therapy, and at the time I was in the church, I was seeking counsel from them. I was speaking of vulnerability. I had this anger issue and I wanted to overcome because when you speak it, you let go of the hold that it has on you. And I remember being in the church and I had two different pastors talk to me and they say, you may be angry the rest of your life, but keep giving it to God and he'll give you strength. And they point to scripture and I know they meant well,
Right.
but having that life taken out of me even more when I had some hope
Right.
and I'm being told it may never happen. And every day it was a battle not to get angry, pleading with God, this God outside of me, thinking, please give me the strength. Please give me the strength so I don't hurt my daughter. And then ultimately doing that, watching her cry, and then getting pissed because she's crying. And my daughter just had, and I just had a conversation about that now, telling me, Dan, you remember when you used to get mad at me for crying? She's like, that is the most ridiculous thing. And I'm like, let me explain and share the story behind that now. Because I feel I can share this with you because we're having this conversation. I wasn't mad at you for crying. I was mad at myself for making you cry. And you were physically showing me that, and I could not process them. So I got mad and told you to leave because of that.
Yeah.
And here I am every day battling this war, trying not to get angry. And then that guilt and shame is compounding and compounding and compounding. I'm asking for guidance. I'm asking for help. Please, failing, sometimes yelling
Yeah.
at this God outside me going, will you fucking help me? I mean, there was time, will you
Yeah.
fucking help me? I can't do this. Why are you letting me suffer? Why are you, more importantly, screw me, why are you letting my daughter suffer?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't get it. And this was going on months and months. And I'm like, I guess I'm never going to get over that. I guess I'm destined to be angry. I guess I'm destined to not be this great dad. I'm guessing I'm destined to not have this great life and have great relationships because my relationships suck too.
Right.
And at the same time, I remember going, I'm the common denominator here.
Yeah.
I'm the common denominator. I was strong enough and man enough to go, wait, it's not all them. Yeah, they got their shit too, but I'm the common denominator here.
Oh,
There's
and it's
something
hard to
here.
take a look at ourselves like that. It is hard to do that.
It very is very hard to do, especially from a man's aspect of things. But I wasn't showing up. And I'm like, maybe I'm just destined to struggle. And I got to the point I actually repressed this part of what came to me as I got to this bottom place. And I remember sitting there, and this was just started just recently as I really started connecting with this part of my story again. So I can really help men overcome and heal anger and break these generational cycles of anger and create this inner peace so they can show up and and as the man and dad they want to be, because that's where I was. That I got to the point that I asked this question to myself. Well, questions. It was like a three-part question was maybe she'd be better off without me. That's where I got to.
Wow.
Maybe she'd be better off if someone with someone else. If someone else took care of her, maybe she would be better off as somewhere else where I couldn't hurt her anymore. It's a dark place for someone who already lost their mom.
Yeah, that's very, very, very heavy stuff right there. Wow.
And then but I was physically here, but I wasn't here for her. I'm supposed to be this guy that's supposed to be this protector, and I'm the one that's her safe place, and that was anything but that. So I got to that point of feeling so hopeless, so helpless that, well, maybe if I'm out of the picture, I can't hurt her anymore and she can be okay. I mean, that's where I got to
Yeah.
because it kept going day in and day out. Well, I keep giving it away. I keep giving it outside of me and it's still happening. Maybe that's just the case. And as I was having those questions, just feeling that dark place, this is when I heard the voice speak to me again. And the voice says, Tony, my daughter's name is Kylie. So, Tony, Kylie's going to choose a guy like you someday and marry him. If she were to choose today, would you be happy with that choice? And immediately, angrily, I said, oh, hell no, I'd fucking kill him. And the voice leaned in. You can hear it like lean in,
Yeah.
and it got softer. And it says, well, she's watching you.
Yeah.
You got work to do. And I go, well, I've been trying to work. I've been asking if it's you, whatever. It's like, I've been doing this work. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
What work am I supposed to do? I've done all this stuff, therapy, counseling, church counseling, all these different things. And I'm like, I am still struggling. Yeah, I took an edge off a little bit because I was able to beat depression, but I'm like, I don't know what else to do. I've tried everything. Of course, the voice, again, they like to laugh and, and says, go deeper within. You've been seeking outside of you.
Yeah.
Go within, go deeper within. The answers lie there. And I just felt this energy within me. And I'm like, I have no idea what that means. I
Right.
have no idea how to do it. I don't know where to go, but okay.
Yeah.
And it was at that moment that I declared, I'm going to overcome anger or I'm going to die trying. There was burned all the bridges, all the boats. I was going to overcome anger or I'm going to die trying. I was going to become the best man I could possibly be or I was going to die trying. I was going to become the best dad I could possibly be or I was going to die trying. And all I wanted to do was overcome anger. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I started going within, started getting books to help me go within and understand the anger, and started pulling back these stories and stories and stories and all this stuff that was stored in my body and all these things. And over time, within about a year, I became in a better place. But it still took me a minute to actually accept that I was a good dad. It was
Yeah.
always, yeah, but. And then finally one day, of course, I'm fucking human.
Exactly. Thank you. A human
But
factor can be a beast sometimes, but we have to
yes,
acknowledge it. Sometimes we fuck up and we've got to go back and say we're sorry.
yes. And
Is the
that was
way it
one of the
is.
things that I did. And I remember even when I began the journey, when I decided and declared, I went to my daughter who was 8 at the time and I said, hey, sweetheart, I'm doing this. I'm going to do what I can to overcome anger. I know it's hard for you to examine this and really take it in at 8 years old, but actually they're more
My
they have more
gosh.
they have more wisdom than we give them credit for.
Yes,
And I
they
said, but
do.
I said I'm going to do this so I can be the dad that you need and be the man that you need. And I said, I'm going to try. And I said, I may not get it right, but I'm going to try. And I remember in the beginning, because we always want like, okay, I declared it, and I'm doing these things. I shouldn't get angry anymore. And then of course, then you do it, and you're still beating yourself up. And it was in the beginning. I'm like, wait a minute, I've been here my whole life. Can't expect that just to end in a moment. And just noticing that when I did, I owned it. I'm sorry, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
That was my I'm sorry, I'm working on it. And then I'm like, okay, why did that trigger me? And
Yeah.
that's where I started going to where is that coming from? And I started going in and then it became versus multiple times a day. Then it became just one time a day. And then it became every other day. And then once a week and then every other week. And it just kept compounding where the time where I would slip up got further and further and further away.
Yeah.
Where now it rarely happens.
Yeah.
If it does, I know, okay, whatever happened may not be great, but I got to own my part of it and go, okay, where's this coming from? Because otherwise it wouldn't have triggered me.
Right.
And that it led me to have this amazing relationship with my daughter, even through her teenage years. She's going to be 19 on this Friday. And people are like, oh, when she turns a teenager, it's going to be a whole different story. Yeah, more emotions, more attitude. Yep, I get it. But it's still been pretty fucking awesome because I've done so much work that it doesn't trigger me as much. Now, if she oversteps the line, of course, hey, you went too far on that one. And she actually, it's interesting because she used to get afraid when I used to get scream and yell and throw things across the room. It makes her more uncomfortable now when I'm in a comfortable voice, calm voice, and I say, that's uncool.
Right.
That you went too far on that one. It's like me being calm, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
But she's like, oh, but it's, yeah, occasionally. I mean, we all have moments.
Yeah, we
We
are.
expect our kids not to get crabby, but we get crabby.
Yeah, that's not fair, is it?
I'm like, it makes no sense, but it's been such an amazing ride. And I'm grateful for my daughter, and I see the blessing with it all now. Like, and it's to some, it might sound crazy, but it's like my wife, like, there's whole divine everything connection here. Like, she had to come, had to give me a daughter. She had to die. And my daughter, she had to be a daughter. Had I
Yeah.
had a son, I would have just passed the same stuff on. It had to been the feminine energy to get me to this point, to be able to break those cycles. It all had to happen. And my wife is one of our guides. She showed up in many of my healings. She showed up in my daughter's, a lot of her healing stuff. She shows up.
Oh, I
She's one of
believe
our
that.
guides. She's like Sally, one of our like I feel it because I feel spirits when they're near, so I if they touch, but I feel the energy of the spirits. My daughter, she opened up, she can actually hear the spirits, talk to her in their voice. I hear them in my voice, but their tone and when they speak
That's
or when
awesome.
I channel. Occasionally I hear, but my daughter's very audible with that. Um, so she's one of our guides, and it was interesting. One of my wife's friends, and this was years later, maybe just a few years ago. It was interesting because I've never knew this story. I never knew these conversations. She's like, Jen was my wife's name. She's like, we had conversations, and she always knew that you would get here. She had this deeper feeling that you would always get here. And she also said that she didn't know if she would be able to get there, but she knew that you would get there. And
It's
I was
amazing.
like, wow. And here's how it had to happen that way for her to have the overdose on the prescriptions and me finding her dead on the couch and all the things with that. And it's like, yeah, there's trauma there.
Definitely.
Um, but the magic behind all of that is
Yeah,
it's been pretty now I can see the whole divine picture of that. It's like, oh, we signed up for that. Okay, this is exactly what was supposed to happen. And this is how I was finally ultimately going to break these generational cycles of handling that and going through that. And it takes me back to full circle back to this generational cycle thing of the story of so my dad has triple bypass surgery. We're leaving the hospital. And this is all around the time that I just began my journey that I declared, said I was going to be overcome anger. That's all I wanted to do. I was overcoming anger, or I was going to be die trying. My daughter was going to know that I gave everything. Whether I succeeded or not, she was going to know that I loved her enough, loved her steeply that I was giving it everything that I had. And there would be no doubt in her mind and her body that I didn't love her, that I didn't try enough. Anyway, so we're leaving the hospital, and my brother and his now wife, but his girlfriend at the time, but we were in the elevator, and he goes, because my brother didn't have a filter, still doesn't, but he goes, "This is going to happen to you too." Meaning, I was going to have a heart attack. I was going to have bypass, all the things. I said, "No, it's not." He goes, "It is. It runs in the family." Take a step back. At the age of 41, my brother has a major heart attack, died 3 times. He's had 2 other heart attacks since then. He died 3 times, came back. He was actually in the hospital and got out a week before my mom died. I mean, that's like the whole time
wow.
she was in the hospital, she had no idea. Like, why is he not coming to see me? Well, he's
Uh,
not feeling well. He's not feeling well. And she sensed something wasn't right. But so he says to me, this is going to happen to you. It runs in the family. And I remember saying, very, well, there was some anger behind it, more passion, I would say. But I went, do you know why it runs in the family?
yeah.
I said, because we're a bunch of angry fucking assholes. That's why. Constricted. We're so angry and we're a bunch of assholes. That is why it runs in the family. And this is where it came out of me. I said, it runs out with me. I am changing our family tree. I am breaking this generational cycles. And I remember saying that going, what the hell does that even mean? I have no idea what that means. Now here I am teaching it and talking about it. But
Right.
but it's like I had no idea, but it was like my soul was speaking it.
Yes, absolutely.
And my higher self was speaking it before I even knew what the hell I was saying.
Yeah.
And then came a point like, I'm going to show you. Well, I thought that too. And then I had one. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not coming from this asshole ego, invincible
Right.
thing. I'm saying I'm breaking I'm healing whatever is holding us back from this creating this thing. And then I started learning about epigenetics and all the science behind turning genes off and on. And I'm like, oh, this is why the same shit runs through the family because the same patterns, behaviors, beliefs, traumas are passed on and stored in the body. And then we store it in our own perception and we create things in our body. And when we let go of those things heal and move on. We turns on different genes and boom, things are different.
Yeah.
And that's where I began this journey. And I had no idea because at the time I was still in the church, still doing the things, but I was overcoming anger. And like I said, in a year, I overcame.
Yeah.
But then again, I denied anger. Look, I'm not angry. I'm just frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. Just kind of like the nice guy. I'm okay. I'm okay. Not
Yeah.
sharing my needs, the same thing, because I was over here, whereas uncontrolled, where I would speak my mind, but I didn't give a fuck what I said or how I hurt or whatever. I'm like, I'm speaking my mind. Then I went to the other side. Ooh, I can't speak anything. I got to be accepted. I got to
Right.
be approved. I got to have all this validation. Like, nope, nope, nope. And then it's like, oh my God. Oh, I can't be in my masculine because that hurt. And it's
Right.
learning to come back home. Coming, like I said in our pre-chat, when I saw my inner child and and when I was doing that meditation, he had his arms wide open. He said, "Welcome home."
Yeah.
And
Welcome
it's
back to
about,
you. Yeah.
yeah, peeling back all the layers of who we are. And there's someone I was listening to the other day. They called it unbecoming.
Yeah.
It's all about unbecoming who you think you are, and then adding that and welcoming yourself back home to who you truly are. Ooh, I
Yeah.
like that.
Absolutely.
That just got birthed right there.
It's very true. And what a testament to your daughter. I mean, your daughter has this perspective of watching you do all this work. And when you were talking about, how she like reacts when you get quiet, I wonder if it's kind of the same thing as you did with your dad, where or maybe the thing that you did with her earlier in her life where you made her cry and you were mad but not at her, but because you allowed yourself to get to the place where you made her cry. Maybe she feels a little bit of that when you're getting quiet and going, oh, you've gone too far this time. Maybe she's like, oh shit, I did go too far and I pushed him to that place. I did that. So maybe it's kind of that thing too. But what a beautiful story of how you can transform your life, continue to work on things, and not accept the status quo of your family that has been there for generations and generations and generations. And you're like, the buck stops here. The buck stops with me, even though you didn't really realize the impact of what you were saying in that moment. Your higher self was just still like, this is the how, Tony. you know?
Which was ultimately that voice in the first place,
Yeah.
speaking to me and laughing. It's like, oh, go in, go
Yeah.
in, go deeper within. Because when you go deeper within, you connect with yourself, you connect with God, source, creator, whatever you, to me, it's all the same. But whatever resonates with someone, it's like because our soul is part of creator, source, we are source of creator. But the thing is we've got it backwards thinking it's all outside of us. No, if we went in, which is Jesus was originally teaching in the first place, I've come to learn and know. And it's like, okay, that's what he was really teaching, like how to be that, how to come in and to experience who you truly are as this divine being in the first place, which has also been a breaking status quos of the church and understand like, oh, can I speak my truth on this? Can I do this? It's like, oh, yes, yes, I can. Of course, with past lives of being a wizard or witch and being killed, there's that coming up too. And it's like all of this. It's like I lose things when I we've talked about this in the beginning.
Yes.
If I am myself, I lose things. There's chaos and there's so much uncertainty, so that we get stuck in this. Oop, nope, nope. We can only move so far forward, and then we create this barrier, this deeper resistance of really moving forward. And it's learning to ground, which is where that part of my journey is where I'm at right now, just being truly transparent and vulnerable, which we were talking about in the pre-chat,
Yeah.
is really grounding deeper in myself and creating this experience, the laughing through life experiences where that's my thing. That's my movement of unbecoming to welcome you home. So you can create this inner peace, show up as the man and dad you want to be. And yes, I've helped women do the same thing.
Yeah.
And women show up in their feminine power, which then turns around and creates this shift in their husband where they got to go, oh, I got to create, and also helping the men. Because I knew and I felt this, the women are going to want to be leading the men to me. I thought it was going to be in a different aspect. Now I'm even seeing it show up differently now, where it's pretty cool and experience. But I had to really accept that part of my own masculinity because I rejected that part of me. And why wouldn't I? I mean, that's all I've known. And now it's learning, oh, that's part of me. And it's accepting all parts of ourselves to feel that wholeness, even the dark and I mean, the shadow leads to the light. You can't just ignore the shadow. I mean, you just can't. It's like, oh, nope, I don't want
That's,
to feel that. I don't want to feel that way. I've got to distract myself with all these
yeah.
different things. It's like, no, feel,
Yeah. Well,
feel your,
there's a phrase that is going around pretty heavily and has been for a little while. You have to feel it to heal it. And you do. It's, and one of my spiritual mentors told me one time, you can't push it down. When you push it down, you absolutely guarantee that it's going to come back up again. And the thing is, when we push things down, it's kind of like that volcano thing. We keep pushing it down and it just builds up pressure. It builds up pressure till when it does come out, then maybe it doesn't come out in the most effective way possible, the prettiest way possible, the most, you know, healing way possible. It just blows out and in this just like big mess. And then you're in this situation that you have no choice but to address. Whereas if you just allow yourself to experience those emotions and those calmer, more quiet moments, even though they don't feel good. I mean, and I've had days like that where I've been working on something and it's the whole day and I will just work on it and look at different aspects of it and allow myself to feel it. I'll cry about it. I'll be mad about it. I'll be frustrated, whatever. I just allow myself to feel whatever emotions those are. And then I go to bed and I'm like, tomorrow is going to be another day and I'm going to have a different perspective. And then I'll get up the next day and everything is so clear. Everything is so clear, but it wouldn't have been if I didn't allow myself to experience all the crap the previous day. It didn't necessarily feel very good.
and I've had days like that. I've actually had weeks. It's like constant. It's like, oh my God, can I get some breathing room here? But it's this constant just surrendering to that. So it's just a reminder. It's like, okay, if we can surrender in one area, we can surrender in all areas and learn to trust that. But it can be scary to fully let go. And it's like
Yeah.
I've seen people use, and I've done this. I've used healing tools as a way to manipulate and try to control things. But you can use it's like like I remember seeing someone's like, how can you meditate and actually not heal and move forward? I'm like, oh, we're using it as a distraction. Just like I
Yes.
used to use laughter as a distraction. One, I didn't want to feel my own pain. Two, I didn't want people getting too close to me because if they saw and felt and heard what I was feeling and hearing, the dark that so there's some dark stuff in there that used to come up, and I'm like, damn.
Right.
If they did that, oh, they would reject me. They would run. There's a whole losing things like, oh, I'm not being, I won't be accepted for me, right?
Right.
That's part of it. But also, I don't want them to feel the way that I'm feeling. So I'm going to use this great modality. Then I realized, wait a minute, I have this great way of doing things, and intuitively, because I can feel other people's energy so well.
Mhm.
Sometimes I take it on so much that, well, now I've raised my vibration enough to where I don't just take it on unless I'm working and I want to connect with someone. In the beginning, it was not that way. I was feeling everybody shit. And there's still times that I'll feel it. I'll hear the thoughts. I'll hear the collective. And I'll go, wait, 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 wait. This came out of nowhere. Is this mine? That's not mine.
Right.
Okay, I let that go. It's not mine. Because I can also transmute people's stuff right through me too to help facilitate when it's really heavy for them. Of course, I never knew I could do that until it actually happened. Uh, it happened one time. I was like, "Oh, what the hell was that?" And then when my daughter went through her spiritual awakening too, and she was having a panic attack, I asked, "I'm like, can you make this a little lighter for her?" And they said, "No, you connect." What? You connect with her energy field and help her. I'm like, okay, but I'm like, I already know. I'm like, I already feel everything she's feeling anyway because that's one of the things. And now she's just like, oh yeah, I've come to know that you know it before I know it because I feel the subconscious piece of because I know where she's storing in her body and I know where people are storing the stuff in their body. I can feel and I'm like, you're storing it here. It's moving here. You're wanting to do here, but then I'll channel and get the message of what it is, what they're ready to let go of. There's times that my daughter will, I'll feel her wanting to cry before she even cries. I'm like, you're wanting to cry. It's okay. You're safe. Go ahead and let it out. But I don't want to. Oh, you're going to feel it. You're going to have something come up. And it goes back to you talking about like it's going to erupt, right? So
Yeah,
not only does it erupt in these emotions and these patterns in our life, it will come up in our health or some way we're going to address it.
like
Because if we
absolutely.
don't feel it, it's stored in the body. And this is why we have so many ailments and, these autoimmune diseases and everything. A lot of that is coming from those trapped emotions, past lives, generational stuff holding on to until we move it. But many, and like I talked to so many men recently, I didn't want to feel it. It was scary to feel. I didn't want to hear the thoughts. So I would distract myself. And for
Yeah,
me, I used meditation, I used all the journaling, all these modalities to keeping myself stuck from actually letting go and healing. I would get some healing, but to ultimately let go, I wouldn't because it's like now you need to step on stage. You need to step on stage. They kept telling me that you step on stage. Then I would step on stage for a little bit and I would go back because like now I gotta like you said earlier, you gotta to let yourself be seen at that level.
yeah,
I felt that deeply because it's like yes, and now really feeling it because I'm being moved, which many of our us are being moved into this newer timeline. It is time. Oh, I'm getting chills.
yeah,
It is time you're going out, and we're 2024 was a heavy year of letting go, and it's like whatever's left at the end of 24, okay, like we talked about in the beginning too, all
yep,
these things are just coming up. It's like, what the hell is happening?
yep.
Gotta let it go. We're moving into, and I know that we're moving into this new space of receiving. And you said it, I can't remember what you said, but like moving into, you can actually tell me or restate that what you said earlier about moving into this new way of receiving and like you can feel something bigger is happening. I think that's what you
Oh
said.
yeah. Absolutely. Where, you may not know exactly what is happening, but you feel like there's this big thing that you're meant to do that is going to cause some of the things that you're doing currently in your life that look like they make sense and they're beautiful things, but it's going to cause them to fall away because you absolutely aren't going to have time for them anymore because of this new big thing that's happening. And I feel that so strongly right now in my own personal life, and I'm starting to see the tip of the iceberg has emerged, and it's just going to continue to expand upward till it becomes this big huge thing that can't be ignored anymore. That's what I feel like. And and you said you felt that in your own life as well, and I feel like there's just such this expansiveness happening right now. Like, where is the edge? Is there an edge? Is there even an edge at all? Like, how far do we get to go? That's kind of the vibe I've been feeling so much lately. And it's so cool. And at the same time, there is some fear there because what does that mean? Right? What does that mean? And I think that especially, with your situation with your family line and things like that, what does it mean for how your families and mine too, all of us that are going to be doing these expansive things, what does it mean? What our families, what are they going to think? What are they going to say? What are our friends going to say? How is it going to look? Like, what are we going to get to wear? What are we going to get to do? How, like, and we briefly talked about money mindset. And the thing about it is there's so many of us that have these big, huge hangups around money. And I understand because we've been taught these money stories our entire lives for generations. It's been generational throughout our families that we've been hearing these money stories. And so we have to redevelop how we look at money, what we think about money, what we feel about money, what it means to us. And one thing that has become very apparent to me is money allows you to do more. It allows you to reach more people, to go more places, to experience things that are going to allow you to share those things with other people. It doesn't mean, we've been taught so much, or at least I was, Tony. I don't know about you with your family, and you can share if you'd like to. But I was taught in my family, money doesn't grow on trees. It's not easy to come by. If you do get it, it's hard to keep. Rich people are assholes, they're selfish, and they're all of these things. Well, if you really feel like that about money, then are you really going to be able to draw money to you? You draw to you the things that resonate with you. So if you have this conflicting energy around money, then how are you going to draw it to you so that you can expand your life and thusly be able to help more people? You know?
And that's those, every single one of those you said, I've heard those as well. Then you got to work hard. You got to
Yes.
sacrifice. You got to work hard to be able to deserve it.
Yes.
Like if you're not working hard, if it's coming easy to you, you don't deserve it. And then there's also like for me, one of the things personally came up because it's in that theme of losing things, right? It's like, oh, if I get all this, I'm gonna lose it.
Right.
Like that's it's like just like I was like, oh, because that means I have to be me. If I'm being me, oh, what happens?
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up for me is like the ancestral thing is who do you think you are that you can do better than us, that you can earn more than us? Because this is something I felt. Now I'm having a hard time trusting it, but just being full transparent and owning that piece of it. I have felt this for a little while. I know because I'm just like I'm the first person in my immediate family that got a degree that I don't use anymore. But and part of that
Same
was
here.
me proving myself that I was good enough and worthy enough. I'm gonna prove to my dad that I'm not fucking stupid. That was part of that. And then letting all that go. But I have this feeling that I am going to, and this is a whole generational thing, and I'm feeling, okay, emotions coming. So yes, true. I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family, the whole lineage.
High five, Tony.
I know that.
Yes.
Like I feel it.
Yeah.
Trusting it isn't a whole other thing when like you were talking about on in the when we were before we even recorded that it's believing it even when you can't see it. And for me, one of the things, because the whole damn theme of everything, especially this month, is trust, surrender, and trust. You got to trust what you can't see.
That's right.
Even when shit's falling apart, you got to trust. Trust it's all working out. It's going to work out. Some of the things have to fall apart in order for it to come together. It's rising from the ashes like the phoenix, which resonates with that fire burning up and rebirthing as this magnificent, powerful, magical fucking being. And we go through phases just like the Phoenix. The Phoenix dies and rebirths over and over and over. But as we do this, it's less scary. It's not as scary. Each time we do, we know it's happening. We move through it faster. And that's
Yes.
just coming from me right now.
Yeah.
I love when I just channel things that come through because this is how it goes when I go get into flow state. Things just flow, and I'm surprising myself.
Love
Um,
it.
I do this in a lot of like when I'm speaking conversations. Like I have a structure when I speak, but I also feel the energy of the crowd and whatever comes out of my mouth at that time. It's like, oh, I didn't know I was going to say that. So that each time I speak, it's not always the same. Some of it is, but not always because
Right.
it's whatever the energy and what's coming out of that moment, that rising phoenix. We're reigniting that fire within you and just like connecting with that energy and becoming out. It's like, I know, I feel it, but it's trusting the intuition, trusting myself, trusting the intuition in me. Like I'm very intuitive. I'm not always easy to accept and trust that because
Right.
I doubt because that's all I've known.
Yeah.
Like I knew I had these gifts as a kid.
Yeah.
They got shut down, so then I doubted them. But then
Right.
I was starting to wake back up. Like I have this deep feeling of knowing things.
Yeah.
I feel things. I forgot what Claire that is because I just know enough to, I'm like, I know I feel.
They're
I,
cognizant.
I knew that my grandpa was going to die, my mom's dad. I knew it. This was sophomore year, I think it was. My sophomore year of high school. Like the day before, like first day of school. I'm like, my mom was going to go up and see him because he had cancer, he wasn't doing well, but he was, in a nursing home. And I'm like, I want to go see him. They're like, no, it's going to be late. You need to get up early for school. And I'm like, but I feel like something's going to happen. I want to see him and talk to him before then. Like, no, no, he's doing better. Nurses, all his vitals he's doing better than he was. He's
Yeah,
like, dude, he's doing great. And I'm like, Mom, something's telling me it's not. Something's going
right.
to happen. No, 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 he's good. I mean, all the things they're saying, it's good. He's fine. He's doing so much better. I'm like, I'm telling you, nope. They denied me from going. Next day he died that morning.
Mm,
I was so mad because I was really close to my grandpa.
yeah.
I was so mad because I felt this, but then I was like, oh, but I pushed it down. Psychic dreams. I have psychic dreams, which my dad had too. My dad had that ability.
Oh,
I have psychic dreams. I channel messages too, but sometimes I'm like, what the hell did you just send me? Because it's not always clear as, hey, step by step. It comes in like they use images and things like, what the hell was that? Like
right.
I dreamt that my dad was going to die. Like he was already sick, but it's like we knew he was going to die. But it's like, no, this one, it was like he he is he's dying. Like this is it. Like he went for 4 years of just suffering and he made himself suffer
Yeah.
because of that guilt and shame of how
Felt
he
like he
treated my
deserved
mom.
it.
Yes. And my brother's like, because it took him a while to accept my gifts, which he has his abilities, but he's not owning his either. But
Sure.
he's starting to more and more as I let go. But I was like, Dad's have guilt and say, oh no, it's not. I'm like, he's got guilt and shame. I'm telling you. And I'm like, I've had conversations with Dad because as I've done more spiritual energy work, the energy between us shifted some. He still was not open,
Sure.
but it was different. Like I could see and I was able to observe, like when my brother and him were in the same room, it was a different because they were matched energies.
Hmm.
It was different how my dad interacted with him, and there was like more anger and like attitude between the two of them. Like the way my dad would, especially when he was on hospice. Where I came in, it was a much more calmer energy. He was still a cussing, especially he was I mean, when because he had his heart issues. Then he ended up getting diabetes from which a lot of that time that happens. He let it go unchecked where it was eating him. Like he went from 170 pounds to under 100 pounds by the time he actually passed. It was eating at him,
Yeah.
eating at him. And where one time his blood sugars were over 1,000, which um over 1,100. The doctors are like, we don't know how he's alive. People go into
Right.
comas at 400. How is he alive?
Yeah.
It was like, I'm like, my dad's like, it's over 1,000. I'm like, that's not a cool thing to, it's not a good, PR personal record here. But that's
He's
what he
like, look
did.
what I can do. Watch this.
And he was still active. And then it started, eating his arteries and he started having dementia from that. And we started having conversations. I remember one day he said to me, now I know how your mom felt. And I went, he's saying he's all this guilt and shame without saying it because he couldn't vulnerably say that. And I remember going, Dad, but you're doing this to yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to. And then I had this other conversation. It was May of 2020. He died in July, a month, well, just a little shy of a month before his birthday. He went into the hospital again, and it was another voice that said, "Go set him free. He's holding on because he wants to make sure you and your brother are okay."
Yeah.
But he wouldn't verbally. And I'm like, all right, went and had this conversation. Dad, I have this feeling. I couldn't just say, I know. I have this
Yeah.
feeling. I have this feeling that you're holding on because you want to make sure we're okay. And he actually, he's like, yeah, I do. But I remember going, how is he going to remember? Because he's in and out of things. And they're like, his soul will remember whether his mind does or not. And I went,
Yeah.
okay. And I said, Dad, Go when you're ready. We're good.
Yeah.
It was letting him like, you're good. And then I had this dream right after that, and my dad was possessed in this dream.
Wow.
And I remember going around asking someone to save my dad. Like, can you get this out of him? That possession was his guilt and shame. I've learned this. And I was like going around, but I had this like this fear of going to my dad, and they kept saying, no, you're the one that has to do it. And I'm like, but I can't. That damn, I can't. I can't. Like, you're the only one that can do it. Nobody else can do it. You are the one that's setting him free. I can't do that. And I woke up and I remember going, what was that? And so I felt this need to go channel. Okay, let me go write this down. What does that mean? Dream mean? And that's when it came out. Your dad is dying, but you need to set him free before he goes. And this one, I started crying because I felt the truth. Like, oh yeah, we thought he was going to die over the last, several years, and we know he's going to, but is he really going to die? I felt this on the deepest level. I'm like, this is it. And they're like, it's going to be after his birthday, which was August 25th, and it's going to be after his birthday. He wants to make it to his 75th birthday. That's where he wanted. And I was like, all right. And then I was doing meditation, and the date came to me when I was in meditation was August 29th. And I go, I don't want to know anymore. Because I don't know if that's the day he goes or if it's going to be this transition. And I was like, no. And of course, I hear, Spider-Man's grandpa, with great power comes great responsibility. And I'm like, I don't know if I want this damn response power then. Um, and of course, at the time that I channeled this, they're like, don't say anything to your brother because he's not going to get it. In
Right.
time, you'll be able to, but right now you can't. And I'm like, I got to hold on to this. I got to like, I can't share with anybody except for certain people that knew spiritually, like spiritual people that knew, like, no. I'm like, okay, but I can't share this with my brother. And my brother said, I knew you knew something. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't have gotten it. You didn't understand what was going on because
Right.
you kept saying, no, no, no. Like whenever I would speak this, I'm like, I'm not even going to battle with you. Fine. Okay. I can feel it, but okay, whatever. And so but he said after his birthday, well, he died July 30th. And it's like, okay, that wasn't after his birthday. What happened there? So right before I had this, and it was my former best friend. Um, she did quantum timeline healing and hypnosis stuff to go into things. And I remember feeling this call, hey, we're supposed to do some work. What are we working on? I have no idea, but we'll know once we get in there.
Right.
I have no idea what this is. Oh, but I can do it next week. No, it's supposed to be this week. Well, I'm booked. I'm just telling you what I feel. I don't know what's going on. And this was on like over the weekend. So that Monday, that Sunday, that's what it was. That Sunday, she says, hey, I had someone cancel on Monday. Do you want to jump on? I was like, yep. And it's kind of smiled and like, all right, just let it be. And it opened up. So we go in, and actually, as we're going into the hypnosis, I actually go into a panic attack. And I'm like, okay, this is odd. What's
Yeah.
that about? Well, then she's trying to like calm me down and making it worse. I said, nope, just keep going. I was really calm about it. Heart's pounding, body's just freaking out. But I'm like, just keep going. It'll ease weight. Well, I don't know if you're connected. I'm connected. I'm under, but that's still going on.
Yeah.
And so we're doing all this work, and it's about an hour in, and then all of a sudden we're in Willy Wonka's elevator, and we're going up, right? We're going up, and it's flying. It's getting faster and faster and faster and faster and faster, and then we shoot up out of the top of the building, just like in Willy Wonka,
I
right?
love this.
It shoots up out, and then when we shoot up out of the roof, we are in the higher dimension.
Nice.
And I immediately see my dad on the other side,
That's awesome.
and he smiles and he says, that's my boy. He finally did it. And I, I didn't get the connection until just right now, actually, which is the sign of the ancestors. We knew you were going to do it.
Yeah.
He was
See, they're
our,
proud of you already.
yes, he was already on the other side when he was alive here, but I saw him on the other side.
Yeah.
He says, "That's my boy. You did it." Because me going through that ceiling was me breaking through. This is a new awareness for me.
Breaking that generational cycle.
Like fully. It's
Yeah.
like this speeding up process, speeding up, and then boom, finally breaking it.
Yep.
I'm in my power. I'm in my magic, free, doing exactly what everyone intended to be, being on that stage, doing that bigger thing that you just talked about. Wow. There's so many great awarenesses coming to me today.
I love this
But,
so much.
but as he said that, I remember feeling something weird. And I look down and I see this cord coming from me to him.
Hmm.
And it was at that moment that I knew why I went into that panic attack. Because I realized I was the one holding him back.
Mm.
I had this unconscious cord because I always wanted this relationship with my dad that I never had and never was able to.
Yeah.
And I was told that it could not happen here.
Mm.
Like he was shackled. And like I saw this vision of him shackled, like you see in a chain gang kind of thing where you have your ankles shackled, your wrist shackled, and you have a chain going to both. He was shackled. His guilt and shame had him shackled where he did not know how to, and he was not going to be able to let it go until he transitioned
Yeah.
over.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to accept that. I said, no, I'm shifting. I was like, I'm going to go to another timeline. I'm creating this where I have this relationship with my dad. So I was holding on because even though I was consciously saying, Dad, let go, go when you want.
Yeah.
And because I kept feeling this, he was wanting to make sure we're all right because I had this cord. And I started crying during this hypnosis. And I remember saying, Dad, I'm so sorry for holding you back, holding you here because I was being selfish and wanting that relationship here, knowing that the relationship we were going to have was going to be from you being on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry that I held you here. And then I said, I'd let you go. And I cut the cord. The next day I go out to check on him because that's what I did. I found him on the floor
Wow.
in a fetal position, barely alive. A week later, he died.
Wow.
And just like my dream told me, and when I channeled, he was going to show up immediately after his death to let you know he was all right. And boy, did he. I also knew that I was going to be the one to be with him. Like my brother was there when he was on hospice, but my brother, he had a hard time saying it, but he could not see my dad the way he was. And when we found out that he was doing a run, like, oh, he's not going to last another week. And I was like, what? My brother was in Illinois working. My trauma from finding my wife dead took over for a moment. And I'm
Sure.
freaking out. I'm like, you got to get back here. I can't do this by myself. And then I settled down into it. I'm like, oh, I know I'm going to be the one that is going to be with my dad. Yeah, people are going to be there, but I'm going to be the one to wake up by myself. And because I was the one giving him his morphine to keep him, but my dad already put himself into a coma, like put himself into it. When
Sure.
they put oxygen, he was like, okay, I'm done with this shit. And he went to sleep and never woke back up. Like he was still clenching like his sheets, like when he couldn't breathe, when the oxygen levels were dropping, because he was going into bad kidney failure and everything was just shutting down. And then he couldn't really talk to me. And I called the nurse. They got him out here and got the oxygen and gave him morphine. And they upped his morphine. And then he didn't really need it, but we were doing it anyway because we didn't know. But he did until he slowly, I kept whispering, Dad, it's okay. Let go. Mom's waiting for you.
Yeah.
Everybody's waiting for you on the other side. And then I knew that like I was going to wake up and I was going to be the one. And I did. I was the one that was there to, okay, he's, he's gone. I went and broke my brother up. And then it's just like my fucking dad too. As we're sitting there waiting for the nurse to show up to confirm that he in fact was passed on, I heard Frank Sinatra, My Way, pop in my head. Heard that song once, didn't really know the song, but I started singing parts of it. And I was like, huh. So then I pulled up YouTube and pulled the song on and I started crying.
Yeah.
And I was like, Dad let us know. He made it and he did it his way,
Yeah.
which is how he did his life anyway.
Right.
He did it his way. And then later that night, we're all in there going through. It's like, all right, my brother, he's like, okay, we were going through like, hey, you want this kind of thing, because we're gonna figure out what we wanted first before we did the estate sale. And anything we couldn't agree on, we just sold. That's just how we agreed on it. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I get this chill up my spine, which that's how I know when a spirit is near.
Right.
This time it was different because then I would feel the energy and I would get goosebumps, like I would feel that spirit energy. This time it went from my feet all the way up and it completely consumed me, where it was like my body was vibrating in chills. It was intense. And I'm trying to breathe because it was that intense. I'm breathing. I'm like, somebody's here because that it was hard for me to accept that gift of mine. It's like, someone's here. I don't know who it is. I knew who the fuck it was. But it was like, I'd always go to them. Why do I say that? I don't know who it is. When I would know, sometimes I don't because they don't make themselves known, but
Right.
most of the time I know. It's just me trusting that that's what my intuition's telling me. And my brothers look at me like, what is happening? Because he could see the goosebumps and like he could see it and then he could feel this energy. It was like
Oh,
crazy. But I couldn't move away from it because it was consumed me. Like it's like my dad like jumped in my body for a second, but it was like he was so
wow.
there that it was there and it was
Yeah.
radiating from me. So his wife comes in, my brother's wife comes in from the garage because she was doing stuff out there and she comes up, gets closer, and she was about 20 feet from me. And she felt that energy hit her legs. It was like this big bubble coming from me.
Oh.
And it like she felt this surge of energy and she screamed and jumps back and she was like, "Oh my God, I felt it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can't. I'm it's consumed me. I can't go
Yeah.
any." And it was like I'm breathing and I'm like, "All right, Dad." I'm like, either he doesn't know his power and the energy yet, or he knows exactly what his power and energy is, and he's playing games and having fun with this whole thing, knowing that I am this channel, and it's like, oh, I can
Right.
do this. But he wanted to make it clear, and my brother saw it. My brother was going, "What the fuck is happening?" Because he's always kind of sensed, but also like, "Oh yeah, you're just whatever, being weird and all those things." But my brother always like, "Yeah, you're always the goofy one. You've always been that way, and it's cool to." He's like, I've accepted you for that, and that's just who you are."
Yeah.
But he was seeing it. He couldn't deny it. And then later on, it was like 2 days later. So my dad came pretty solid. I was like, he came. It's like you can't deny, just like when I channel, you cannot deny that this is happening, that he's there. And so we're downstairs. We're actually by his fishing pool. My dad loved fishing. So we're going through. My dad had over $10,000 worth of fishing equipment. He had probably 60 fishing rods. I mean, he had a ton.
Wow.
We're going through it, and all of a sudden I felt that chill again. And then I wanted to cry. I was like, ooh, I think Dad's here again. So when we're looking at something else, and all of a sudden I heard the words, which I heard towards the end of his life here on earth, because I started saying it without expecting anything. And back, I started telling my dad, I love you. And it was very uncomfortable for him. And you see it like in the beginning, you see his whole body tense up. I'm like, oh, he really has a hard time. He doesn't know. But I'm like, it was uncomfortable for me too. But I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show him something different. I love you. And over time he would, I love you too. Just like really, and towards the end
Yeah.
it was easier. I love you too. And it was more like he was still uncomfortable, but he was more at ease with it. So when I felt the crying, like I felt wanting to cry because a few minutes later he says, I love you both. And whew, which is the words I've always wanted to hear. Like I felt it. I'm like, oh, that's that relationship that he couldn't have here.
Yeah.
I love you both. And I said, looked at my brother and I said, Dad says he loves us. And all of a sudden it got weird. My brother was like, oh, so how much you want for the this and that? And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? We're just going through and saying, what do you want? What do you want? I'm like, and then I realized and I went, oh, that fucked you up. Dad messed with
Yeah.
you. He fucked with you. He's like, well, yeah, because that's how and he shared. He's like, well, that's how Dad and I had our interaction and show. He's like, okay, Dad, can I buy that from you? How much you want for that? And usually
Right.
my dad would just say, just take it. Because that's how my dad would try to show love with because he couldn't do it. Um, and that's what he did. I'm like, oh, you felt the energy and it messed you up. And I was like, oh, and then we
Yeah.
started laughing because that's part of what I do, right? I teach and I'm able to use laughter as a way to help move things through, especially since I feel people's energy. I know what to say, when to say it, and it lightens up the mood, or at least helps them release whatever they're feeling in that moment, makes it a little lighter to release. That's part of the laughing through life experience. Part of it. I'm able to do that. I'm able to sense that in I'm like, I've always had this gift. Never realized it. Like I'm more intentional with it. Even at my dad's funeral, he didn't want to have a whole shebang. And we're like, come on, some family are going to want to say their final goodbyes. He was cremated and his ashes were put on top of my mom. So we're sitting there and it was getting really heavy as we're putting that, his ashes on top of my mom, and his brother, like my dad was the oldest and the second oldest. They didn't have the greatest relationship towards the end, and like growing up, it was the stories we hear. Holy crap, it was not. And their energy between like they tolerated each other, but you could still feel the tension between them because of the past. And towards the end, it got much easier. So you could feel all this heaviness, and people were just wanting, like I could feel all the emotion. Everybody was there.
Hmm.
And he takes this dirt and it had rocks in it and he threw it on top of my dad's ashes. And I said, oh, and because I heard it popped in my head and I went, oh, so this is how you finally get back at my dad for all those years. And everybody started laughing and you could feel this release.
Yeah.
It's like you feel it, but then we're going to release it so it's not so heavy.
Yeah.
And that's actually part of how I use laughter in the laughing through life experiences. I create this unique way of doing things for me where healing is not so heavy, dark, and hard as we're often in we believe it to be, or like, oh, you hear spiritual healing or healing, it's like, oh, inner work, shadow work. Oh, that's dark and heavy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. Mine is we're gonna move through it with flow, ease, simple, and fun.
Yeah.
And I say there's a few things that are going to happen when we're working together. Back before I even, like when I first started my awakening and things started happening, I'm like, I don't know how it happens. It just does. Three things are going to happen. One, you're going to get angry. Two, you're going to cry. Three, you're going to laugh. And sometimes you're going to do all three at the same time. And they
Yeah.
would say, how? I don't know. Now I know. Now I
Right.
know how it works. And I also have the ability to help people shift with it's simple. They don't have to cry. Sometimes they don't have to cry. They can laugh and see the stories. Like I have this comedic way and entertaining way of, okay, if someone tells me a story, I can take that story, turn it to almost a comedy skit, and I'll start just intuitively improv, just start sharing and making fun of the story. And then they start laughing and go, oh, I see the craziness in that. I see the silliness in that. And they create a shift in that moment that they weren't able to see.
Yeah. It's beautiful. And I love finding the humor and seeing the humor in things that a lot of people think are dark as well. Like both of my parents crossed over a little over 3 years ago now, and it was very close together, like around 14 hours apart. My mom crossed first and then my
Wow.
dad. Well, my dad was very much a clown. My mom called him her biggest kid. He was always making jokes and doing things and getting people to laugh. And he just was very natural at it. He didn't have to try. And he would always pick on my mom and just, just to try to get her goat and stuff like that. Not in a mean way, but just in a playful
Yeah.
way. And my son and his family and I had gone to the store after the funeral and all of that stuff, and we were just leaving the parking lot, and my son looks over at me and he goes, "Man, Mom, Pa didn't give Mom much of a break, did he?" Like, we just all started cracking up because, like, She didn't even get but like just these few hours of peace from my dad picking on her. And then he crossed over and was, I mean, he was right behind her. So it was just, and it just created this levity. And, some people think, oh, that's just crazy to find humor in that, but it's not. It's very healing. And it's very much who they were as
Yep.
humans on this planet. It's very much who they were. They had that dynamic. So it just made sense to all of us that it followed through into their
Yep.
next stage of beingness.
And I want to touch point on that. So you talk about, oh, when we have deaths here, it's like some cultures celebrate.
They
They have
do.
parties and dance and celebrate death. And here in the US and some other countries too, but the US, it's like we got to mourn, we got to have this, which is all attachment to them. It's like, okay, if I like one of my daughter's struggles is if I let go of all this trauma and pain, I'm going to forget my mom. It's like
Right.
we have this martyrism of I got to hold on to it in order to have this connection with them. And it's not the case. But we also have that, oh, I got to hold on to this pain because I have guilt and shame of how I treated them or whatever. And I've seen that too. And it's like, no. I'm like, have I forgotten? Like I tell my daughter, have I forgotten your mom? No. Have I done a lot of work on healing? Yeah. Okay, so is that true? No. It's like you're holding on to the pain, but she has her own stories with that too of what did I did like as a kid, and like well, it's unconscious, which of course I've used this. It's like what I deserve. Did I do something bad for my mom to be taken away? Because that's her young mind.
Sure.
Like had nothing to do with you, sweetie. Had nothing to do with you. And you're because she has anxiety and some depression that comes up. Um, and that's a whole level of the masculine and the dad. Did I fail her? Because I'm like, I did all this thing. I'm like, nope, that's her story. I'm like, that's her story. But we do that. It's like, oh, I'm the provider, I'm the protector. It's like, did I fail her? It's like, no, we had conversations. She knows she's got her own journey letting go. And I'm like, you have a connection with mom. But since she's been able to open up and hear it, that's opened up a new level of grief. Because she's like, I don't get it. I can hear mom, but I can't see her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I know how that could be pretty crazy. I understand. She's like, I want to be able to touch her physically, and I can't. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. And I said, but I said, at some point, you're going to realize the freaking blessing in that and how awesome that is because there are so many people who are cut off from their gifts that they can't feel. They can't feel or hear any of that in that way. And you have that ability.
Yeah. It's all vibrational. Like I'm here to tell you, I have been seeing I am blessed enough, and I know that I experience spirit in every way possible. See, hear, feel, touch, taste, all of it. I get all of it, and it's amazing. But it is vibrational, and it is what we allow ourselves to open up to. And there's so many different facets to that. And I'm happy to talk to her about it on, on a personal level if she would like to do that.
Yeah.
Um, just to have that conversation, but there's so many aspects that we are able to, but any aspect that we're able to experience spirit in is a huge blessing, and it is very healing to us because I know personally the because there were a lot of dynamics in my family before my parents crossed over, and I was not close to them at the end. And there were many things that happened, like I didn't get to see my mom uh where she was responsive. She was non-responsive when I got to go up there because I'm in Florida. They're in Indiana. They were in Indiana, and but my dad was. So I had just this one brief couple hours with my dad the night, the first night I got up there, and I was able to see him and talk to him. And then the next day he was non-responsive.
Mm.
So, but there's, the relationship that I have with them now, and I feel like you were saying the same thing about your dad since he's crossed over. The relationship that I have with my parents now, and they are guides in my life, especially in my business, which is really interesting to me, is amazing. it's amazing. And I've had both of my parents come to me and tell me things that have been amazingly transformationally healing for me in my life. So she's very blessed. And I know she knows that already. But if she would like to expand that, I'm happy to speak with her in a private setting where we can
Sure. Yeah,
explore that.
she's got to be
Yeah.
more open to that. She's still trying to navigate all those things. And I already felt that I'm like, she's gonna be using that gift at some point,
Yeah.
um, in a business setting. Because, and I'm like, I'm sitting there, I see lots of me in there. And she's working, but she's like, I don't like working. I don't like school. And do I have to go to school? I'm like, no, you don't have to go to school. I was like, there's no set way. I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm like, I got a freaking $100,000 in student loan debt, and I don't even use my degrees anymore. So it's like it doesn't. I'm like, you're not unless you're going into that place. I'm like, and you didn't like high school. That's why we homeschooled you.
Right.
So you think you didn't like high school? College is even. She's like, I'm like, unless you really need some. I said, but I don't. I'm like, you're going to be doing something different, and I can see that because I don't feel I'm employable because I because it's like I could never go back to a job.
That's the funniest damn thing, Tony. Just not employable. I have
I'm
to
not
be my own
employable. I don't.
boss.
I don't do well in the jobs because it confines me. I like the freedom and be able to experience what I want to experience, and that's
I do too.
part of this whole. I'm going to be the first millionaire in my family, but it's also letting go and accepting. It's like I'm not losing my family when I do that. Like,
Right.
who do you
That's right.
think you are? So it's like I'm not losing it. It allows me to change that whole dynamic, and then they get to show with me if they choose.
Yeah.
Because I'm changing these generation things, but it's like I want to be able to travel the world. I love seeing different cultures. I want to be have retreats and do business all over the world.
That's
It
what
takes
you're going to be
planning.
doing. It's just a matter of setting it up. So
Yes,
listen, Tony, we've talked about so many things, and I love the stuff that you have shared so much. You've been so vulnerable and so dynamic and so passionate and so just all of the things inside of this conversation. It has been absolutely mind-blowingly amazing. And I know that it is going to resonate with the exact people that it is meant to resonate with. And it's going to help them and allow them to see a path that they didn't even know existed. I know that is what's happening here as this broadcast is being heard and shared, and that information is going out in this big giant ripple of incredible amazingness. If people would love to work with you, how can they find you and how can they work with you? Because I would love for you to share that information. And then we're going to close this out and have a little bit more conversation after this is done.
absolutely. So the best way to get a hold of me, well, you can find me on the socials, but which you can connect with me is go to my website, and that's tonyfonte.com, and it's Tony, F is in Frank, O N is in Nancy, T is in Tom, E is in Edward, tonyfonte.com. You have a list of resources you can learn about me. You can connect me on the socials there. And I actually have a free download of a intuitive energy healing guided meditation there too. It's called Unfuck Your Energy.
I love that.
It's a powerful because I do a lot of those meditations because they're very, very powerful to help get this
Yeah.
stuck energy out. And it's actually a meditation I used in a challenge that I was doing, a 3 week challenge that it was very powerful. I'm like, wait a minute, let me take that out of there and offer that people to help get started somewhere. So that's where I would go there if you want to learn more and say, hey, let's talk about it. You can even book a free coaching session with me where I can, go through and you can actually experience firsthand the flow and how easy it is to go through the laughing through life experience. And there's no ties to it. I'll offer you a breakthrough and give you clarity and let you see your future reality and actually experience it firsthand and how fun it could be.
Awesome. I'm excited for anybody who says yes to that offer. That's amazing. So thank you, Tony, for being my guest today and sharing all that you have shared today. It's been absolutely extraordinary. And thank you, everyone, for joining us during this conversation. I hope you stuck it out from beginning to end because if you didn't, you missed a whole bunch. So if you're catching this at the end, please go back and listen to all of it because it's absolutely incredible. And I feel like it'll be life changing for some people out there. So take advantage of that. Thank you all for joining us again. I appreciate every single one of you. I love you so very much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can get this information out to as many people as possible. And I will see you on the next one. I love you all.